Hi, I'm Tim Paustian. I'm in the Department of Bacteriology. I've been here for 25 years, believe it or not. I've always loved using technology and finding ways when it's useful. I'm a skeptic when it comes to technology in that it has to be useful first. If I can do something with a pen and paper that works for the students, I'll do that. And I'll use technology when it's useful. So one of the classes I teach is Microbiology 551. It's a research class where the students collaboratively work in groups of 4, and it's actually the class will work on a group project, but they do it in groups of 4 and each person has a piece of it, or each group has a piece of it. But they have to write a research proposal, and we want them to do this collaboratively. In the past, what we've had them do is just use a word processor, work together offline, blah, blah, blah. And that's really cumbersome because it can't be done in real time a lot of the time. It can be difficult for them to get together and meet. A lot of time what would happen is one person would write the document, you know, the kid that wants the A, and then everybody else would add their little bits. We also had no way of knowing who was writing what unless we had them use track changes, and sometimes they didn't do that, et cetera, et cetera. So we were looking for a way of having them truly collaborate on a document in real time so it was always available to them and that we could also watch what was going on. And this generally leads itself right into Google Docs. Now what we did before Google Docs existed is I created a wiki online and we'd have them use the wiki, but then when Google Docs became available within the university, I'm like, hey, this is perfect. So what they do is they write their research proposal together, and we have them do this at the beginning of the semester before they start their research. And then we go through and do the collaborative writing. So it's nice because every member can see it at any time of the day. They can work on it collaboratively, even if they're not in the same place. They can chat together on what they're writing, et cetera, et cetera. And it just made a great system for them. So what I tried is I tried the wiki first. We then moved to Google Docs. They did a reasonably good job. With the Google Docs, some of the things that you can check is that you can follow what they do. You can look at the revision history. The features that we use were pretty low tech. We use text editing, multiple authors on a document. They would use comments, they would write revisions on the documents, and that worked just fine. We got revisions, and you're able to follow the revision history. If you go to the file menu, there's a thing that says revision history. And it was really useful for me because the first day, and I thought this was really important when we talked about using Google Docs, and we went through a little tutorial and a little walk-up to how to use it, and I found this is really important, is you have to give them a tutorial. You have to talk to them about exactly how to do it, because surprisingly, while they're the millennial generation and they're on their cell phones all the time and et cetera, there's lots of things that they don't explore about the technologies that they use, and they're not that up on things. Sometimes I've had students who not realize there's a table function in Google Docs and not use tables and tab things. And so it's useful to do a tutorial. But then part of that tutorial I'd say, okay, here's a feature you may not be aware of. Boom, it's the revision history. I can see who put in what, so that then they know they're accountable. And then you get every person doing their part. And we go through, you know, how to work in a group, what's a contribution, what's not, et cetera, et cetera. And that, you know, that social engineering is really important for this process, and it made it much more successful when you do that kind of thing. All right, so what I would do differently. It did solve the problem of collaboration. We got much better collaboration, as I said. I did learn that when we first did the wiki that you do need strong scaffolding. You really need to spend time, 30 minutes, talking about the technology you're going to use and getting them to understand how to use it appropriately. That was really important for getting this to work. And then the other thing I'll say is the thing that I would do differently is I got to teach the students how to be more effective editors. A lot of the time they'd look at what someone else did, they'd correct the grammar and go, oh yeah, that's good. And it's like, that's not really the job of an editor. You need to do more thinking about their arguments. Are they valid, et cetera, et cetera. And the next time I do this, we are going to spend time teaching them how to be effective editors, and we're actually doing that in 527, which is the class they have before this one. And I think that that's really important. Okay, so that was using Google Docs in small groups with 4 people. So another way that we've used Google Docs is for collaborative data collection. So let me talk about what they're doing. It's a group growth curve. In Microbio 304, which is our introductory microbiology class, there are about 160 to 180 students. They work together on a very short little project where they grow bacteria under different growth conditions, and then we do a growth curve. And what you do is you'll follow it over time, the cell population over time, and you'll plot the data, and each student is responsible for a data point. And so you group this all together and you make this nice growth curve. And this is a great assignment because, number one, it introduces them to the concept of the growth curve and they actually do it. Number two, it really teaches them about what's a good data point and what's not. And like, so when can you throw it out, or when can you identify a data point that's no good, and you'll have like a data point goes up the curve and then you'll have one really bad one, and is it legitimate to throw that out? Well, how can you get around that, et cetera, et cetera. So they learn all about that kind of stuff. And what we've done in the past is we use sheets in lab. So we just have the sheets in the laboratory. They were to write down their data, and when they were done, and then you go from there. And the problem is there's limited availability. So, you know, 9 times out of 10, the student will remember, okay, 6 times out of 10, the student will remember to write down the data. The other 40% would walk out of the lab and not think about it. So then they'd come back and they'd get 30 emails. Dr. Paustian, I forgot to enter my data. Here it is. And they'd email me to it. So then I'm dealing with all of that. And if you start doing the math, that's about 50 emails. So it's kind of a drag. Also, there's poor note-taking. They would forget to write stuff down, and then it wouldn't get recorded, and then there'd be empty things. The other thing is that there's a chance for quality control, which I forgot to put on here, in that if it's on a Google Doc, I can see the numbers come up as they come up at any time, and if somebody puts in a value like 1 times 10 to the 14th, that's not possible. You can't have that many bacteria in a solution, and I can go check your math, we need to talk about this, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really nice. So the new way is using a Google Sheet, and I'm not even going to try. The advantage is, I'm trying to show you it. So it's just a giant table, and we lay out the data in that table. The advantage is everyone has access to it and can edit it, so that you can see all the data come up in real time, which is kind of cool. It's more flexibility when entered. They can enter it in the lab while they're there. We encourage them to bring their phone and their laptops into lab, and they can enter it if they do it. If they forget, they can do it anytime, and the access is anytime. And it's fun to watch it grow in real time. So that worked really well. We were really pleased with the amount of data that we got in. But there are some issues. Okay, number one, everyone has access, which means that they can edit everybody else's data and mess it up. And we have to be, I'm trying to work on, if you guys have any ideas on how to control that, it'd be interesting. Access to a document with large class can become problematic. One of the things we learned is we really had to clarify to students that they have to access it through their wis.edu address. We had lots of students going in with their Gmail accounts, and then they can't get in because they don't have editor access because it's released to the whole UW community. And then literally we got 80 emails saying, give me access to the document. And it's like, no, use your wis.edu address. What's that? I'm using Gmail. What is your problem? All right, so we had to deal with that. And organization of the data is critical. It's got to be understandable to them. The first time the sheet was set up, we set it in a way that set it up in a way that was counterintuitive, and they were putting data in the wrong places and had to correct it, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think the next time I would really spend some time talking about the data sheet and saying, okay, here's where you put the value. one thing that was really neat, because the class is getting so big, we can have triplicates of each data point, and that's really nice, because then they can actually see the data come in, they can see the averages. It's the kind of way that you would really do the assignment, so that's really useful. And that is it. Are there any questions?